So CPI is tomorrow, and we've seen a lot of interesting flows so far this week, specifically today on the S&P 500. You can see here a couple million worth of out the money puts and a little bit in the money, as you can see with this October 17th expiration. And then a little bit earlier on in the session, you can also see 1.5 million, 2.5 million for pretty far out the money. In this case, the 621, while SPY was trading at 653. So there's a decent amount of premium into these, and they also are consistent, which is kind of what you want to see for something directionally speaking. However, if we look to some of the other days this week, since it's been 3 days so far, we can see that it's actually majority 86.8% specifically to 13.2% put flow to call flow. And scrolling down, there's been a lot more of those as well, despite there actually being a couple of these calls from yesterday, which did end up becoming profitable. So key context here that we have to look at when we review flow is what was the goal of a print like this, a print like this, print like this, etc., versus what we saw today and kind of throughout the week with these puts. And there's something interesting here, mainly because of the gap up we saw today on the chart. So as you can see here, yesterday when they added those calls near the close, it actually had a very nice gap up overnight and it went up quite a bit. They definitely were up on their position going into the end of the day. Now, we have not seen if they've closed yet. There hasn't been a sign, at least in the flow, that they've closed. We'll know based on tomorrow's open, based on the open interest, but that's a bit too late because CPI is 8:30 a.m. Eastern before the market opens. So as of now, we know that they at least were looking for some type of an up move in a quick fashion, likely from PPI. Maybe they even had insider information on that, and it did happen. So that's already been completed for the most part. Now, outside of these two prints or three prints kind of in this area, it's been majority puts going into CPI this week. And we also have a 600 strike over here a little bit earlier on. All of these are further dated. So like I said, with the context, these short dated prints before PPI, definitely they were looking for some type of an up move into that event. And as a result, they did end up getting that. But it's surrounded by a lot of further dated, whether it's December expiration, October expiration. Let's scroll up to the ones today. Again, October over here, etc. So they're a bit further reaching going into something like CPI, and maybe even something next week like FOMC. So it's not uncommon to see hedges. I want to make that clear before a big event like CPI, especially the week before we understand the Fed's updated policy and their future projections. But at the same time, this is something that's starting to get a bit more interesting from that flow perspective. If you've been watching these videos, where we're starting to see continuous put prints. Now, if you want to have access to prints like these, you can use that code on the lower right of the screen as a discount code for 15% off after your free trial. So if you like it after the first 7 days free, then you can continue with that and then see this as it comes through instead of having to wait till each of the videos that we make. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Then going over to the chart over here, because we've seen these prints doesn't mean this has to collapse tomorrow morning for CPI. It certainly could, but a lot of this is building up. That's the main premise. And we've seen so far this year, if I go to the hourly chart on SPY, we've seen a lot of upside since the tariff issues that happened earlier on back in March and April. And ever since, it's been in an upward trend. And I've been very adamant in telling you guys specifically for this summer, do not fight the trend. This is mainly a buy the dip opportunity, and you got to wait for confirmation if you are going to fight the trend and end up shorting in this case. And we have not received that confirmation yet. However, during this entire time period, during all this upside we've seen over the summer and kind of around May, even before the summer, there wasn't really that many continuous put prints. Like we saw a singular one here, a singular one there, etc. But there weren't continuous put prints like we're starting to see from this week. So that is a big change. That's why I wanted to start the video off with this, explaining that concept. And that is something that can provide us with a form of confirmation bias once it shows that it's able to confirm potential for downside. So not yet, it is not confirmed downside yet, but as you can see from over here, it's kind of forming a little bit of an ascending pattern. There's a variety of ways we can do this. One would be this line over here. Another one we can do from down there, but this is an ascending pattern. And as a result, we're kind of near the upper end of that. You could see during a CPI, if it is a poor print or the market doesn't like it, whatever, you can see it go down to retest the lower end. If this were to break, you'd see a lot more downside, likely to around like 618 retest off of that. But again, you got to wait for confirmation under something like this in order to short. Otherwise, it's still within an ascending pattern. It can continue to ping pong, so to speak, in between each of these until it decides if it wants to break down or it wants to break up out of it. So again, got to wait for that confirmation on there. That's my plan. I'll continue to provide you guys with updates on this from a technical perspective. But the big deal from this week and for this video was that the flow is slowly starting to change into a period that we know is seasonally bearish. So I wanted to make that clear. Now, MicroStrategy, and I guess it's called strategy now, actually saw a very unusual amount of call flow today, specifically out the money call flow. A lot of premium on it. For example, $1 million print here for the 340 strike that expires next week. Scroll down, you can see some other ones, 2.1 million for the 352.5 strike, even further out the money that also expires next week. Characteristically, we see an uptick in these volumes before volatility begins on Bitcoin. If you remember in the summer, they actually got a trade pretty wrong during that period, and Bitcoin kind of fell during that time, and they chose a very shorted expiration, so they got killed on it. So definitely possible it could happen again here, but this is something that you got to keep an eye on as it relates to Bitcoin, mainly because if I go back to the chart, there's actually a key breakout here with the left shoulder of an inverse head and shoulder pattern and the head over here, the right shoulder, and then we had that breakout of the neckline, which is also an ascending pattern here from today. So still big print tomorrow for CPI that could reverse it if it wants to. It obviously has that power, but as of now, this is a breakout for Bitcoin at these lows. You guys have known my target on it still is over 140,000 believed to happen. We had a hard rejection back up here where I thought that it would break out. So in that regard, it definitely has remained stagnant ever since, but the target has not changed. It's been able to hold this key demand around 108,000 to 110,000. So that's kind of the plan right now. And that's why I took an interest to what we saw with MSTR today, because there's potential for a very quick continuation to this inverse head and shoulder breakout based on the flow that we saw there. So now the last thing that I want to mention is Oracle from today. Not only the move, but some of the crazy flow that we saw as well. So obviously insane move that we saw here, 35.9% up on the day for something that's over, I believe we could actually check right here what the market cap is. This is a $922 billion asset. So almost $1 trillion market cap, and insane move first of all, but again, equally incredible flow today. So I want to bring you over to X. And before I go over some of that flow as well, you probably see all of this over here, the what's happening and everything. Very sad news that somebody got assassinated today that was a notable figure as well. Regardless of viewpoint of that, never good to see at all. So do want to mention that because it's all over Twitter today, and always like to keep these videos cheery as much as possible, but it's not a good thing when you see that happen. So I genuinely wish the best for his family and everybody close to him. I don't know too much about the news so far since I've been making this video and then had the trading session. I've only seen a couple posts so far, so I'm not going to go into any of that here. I'll continue to just talk about what I do know, which is you could see here with Larry Ellison actually had an increase of $75 billion overnight because of Oracle's move today. So rare you see such a increase in somebody's net worth at that level of being billionaire. And actually, he's now the richest person in the world as a result. So surpassed Elon Musk today because of that. And you can see a lot of unusual flow based on Oracle today, millions upon millions worth of premium. Now, one caveat to this, some of these were closing orders, mainly profit takers. But still, when you look at some of the, for example, the leap order over here, or something like October or November expiration, that is more so directional buying. So wanted to bring that to your attention, especially if this continues to be a theme. This is a potential squeeze in the making for continuation. But as of now, still got to see, do we finish the week with Thursday and Friday? A lot more flow like this, then there's that potential for it as well. Again, pretty rare to see such a large move on an asset that's about $1 trillion worth in market cap. So you got to be careful with that, but just wanted to bring that to your attention there. And of course, I already mentioned the MSTR one as well. So that's all for today, and I will see you guys in the next video.